Hello, welcome to my channel A Book Forest. My name is Kim and today I'm going to be doing my December wrap up and also a short January TBR at the end. I usually do my wrap ups and TBRs separately, but since I don't have that much on my TBR for January that I'm starting in that month, I'm just gonna link those two together. So I started a lot of books in December or even before that, but I haven't finished that many. So in December, I finished a total of 4 books, which is fine. It's usually my average. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go from the one I least enjoyed to the one I most enjoyed. So unfortunately, the one I least enjoyed overall is Green Tea and Other Weird Tales by Sheridan Le Fanu. I bought this mostly because it contains Carmilla that I wanted to read. It's one of the first vampire stories, and it was really good, but I read that in October for spooky season, and I totally recommend it. But unfortunately, the rest of the stories in that collection were not as good. I was a bit disappointed. Like, the writing is good. It's very 19th century. Like, it's very verbose. I think he was paid by the word, obviously. Some of those stories are absolutely bloated. Like, there's characters coming in and for no reason, and there's characters going out for no reason with no impact on the story or very little impact. So I thought it was kind of not so well done. Some of the stories are quite short and they're kind of cute, but nothing more. And the longer stories are just way too long for no reason. So that's why I'm giving this one 2 stars. I would recommend maybe buying Carmilla on its own, but not this wind up. Unless you're really a completionist and you want to read everything, every gothic uh, literature from the 19th century, then I would say like give it a go. Then I read White Sand by Brandon Sanderson. So I finished the White Sand on audiobook. So it's the last thing I needed to read in the Cosmere, except for Wind and Truth. So I enjoyed White Sand, and overall it's like a 3-star for me. It kind of simplistic. Of course, it was on audiobook, so maybe if I had read it with my eyes, I would have liked it better. I'm not sure because it's a graphic novel and illustrations are not my cup of tea necessarily. Overall, I did enjoy it. It's like his brand of um, action and magic systems and characters that are kooky a little bit or angsty. But yeah, I think it was a bit less. One of the things he wrote that I enjoyed the least. However, the story itself is fine. It's just nothing that knocked my socks off, basically. So I gave it 3 stars. The narrator is like it's a entire cast of actors narrating. So you have one voice for one character, and it's also there's the sounds and everything. So that was interesting. That angle I enjoyed. Unfortunately, the narrator for the main character is I did not enjoy him that much. So that's unfortunate since he was the one we heard the most. Otherwise, like, there's different cultures and they have different accents, so that's cool. I would definitely, like, if you like Brandon Sanderson and the Cosmere, absolutely give it a go. But I would not pay, like, I think the bind up is in Canadian dollars, it's like 60 something dollars. It's way too expensive. I'm gonna wait. I think he's rewriting it at the moment or something, so I'm gonna wait for that. And then the third book I read that I enjoyed very much was Zen in the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. I'm probably going to do a separate review for that one. It's kind of in the same vein if you've read it as On Writing by Stephen King. So it's part autobiographical and part writing tips. So they give you, like, it gives you a bit of a background story on like the childhood youth of Ray Bradbury, and he also gives you how he writes, like how he finds his ideas, and like it's not necessarily like a play by play, like if you want to be successful, write in this style. It's more of a loose information about how he finds his ideas. But overall, it was lovely. It's a series of essays that he wrote over decades. So it's not like it's probably something that was published in magazines over the years, and they just regrouped it in this little volume. And yeah, it's lovely. Like he was born in, I think probably like I should have checked it out. I think he was born in 1920. So he lived over a period of time that obviously my grandparents would have lived in, and it's a much different time. So he would, very interestingly, you would rent a typewriter in a university basement. Like he would rent it he put quarters in or 10 cents in the typewriter, and it gave him half an hour to write. So he would frantically write for that time. That's really like fun to imagine. And yeah, it gives you like how he finds his stories. Like he would do like word associations, and he was kind of a little bit like Stephen King. Like he would collect things in from his youth, and it would kind of pop up as ideas for him to write, because he's well known for writing Fahrenheit 451, and he talks about this writing process and where his ideas came from for that. So that's like, if you're a fan of that book, you definitely should read this. Also, he writes about Mars, because he wrote the Martian trilogy, I think. So he writes about what his interests were when he was a kid, and like where he found his ideas. But he also writes about his family and where he lived, and it's really cute. So he's famously he wrote pretty much everything on, like, that's not on Mars, in a place called Greentown, Illinois. And yeah, it was really lovely. So there's like, I even cried at one of the essays, so definitely it's a win. I'm gonna read like an extract here from his childhood. Like he enjoyed Buck Rogers, which I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's like a comic strip, and he enjoyed it very much, and he collected it. And his friends made fun of him in like third grade or something, and he just ripped them apart, like, and then he writes what happened afterwards. It's like, friends made fun. I tore up the Buck Rogers strips. For a month, I walked through my fourth grade classes, stunned and empty. One day I burst into tears, wondering what devastation had happened to me. The answer was Buck Rogers. He was gone, and life simply wasn't worth living. The next thought was, those are not my friends, the ones who got me to tear the strips apart, and so tear my own life down the middle. They are my enemies. So yeah, it's very, very impactful. I really enjoyed that. I kind of related to it, of course. And he tells you where his ideas comes from. He tells you his process. And then he tells stories about, like for example, I'll give you an example. Getting out on the front lawn with my 4th of July relatives gave me not only my Greentown, Illinois stories, it also shoved me off toward Mars, following Edgar Rice Burroughs and John Carter's advice, taking my childhood luggage, my uncles, aunts, my mom, dad, and brother with me. When I arrived on Mars, I found them, in fact, waiting for me, or Martians who looked like them. So, yeah, it's really sweet. Yeah, so I enjoyed that very much. Recommend it if you enjoy this type of works. Then my favorite thing I finished in December, and my book of the year as well. I don't know if I'll do a top 10, but this was my favorite book of the year, was The Fiona of Our Tapestry by Guy Gavriel. Okay, it was absolutely what I enjoy. It was lyrical, whimsical. It was classic fantasy. It's portal fantasy, but that's not the portion that I enjoyed of it. I think he could have done it without that. But yeah, it's like the characters are well developed. You know each character, and they have their own personalities, their own destinies. It's not like gritty like Game of Thrones, for example. Like it's not. It's more like ethereal. He writes in some scenes are very very in the moment present, and you feel what the characters are feeling, and some scenes he's just talking about like the characters are evoking stories or legends or something magical is happening, and the tone of the book changes. It becomes a bit more lyrical, a bit more just a bit dreamlike. So yeah, a very interesting type writer, and he writes really well. Like it flows, and I don't. If you like Tolkien, obviously, I think it was inspired by Tolkien, because he did help Christopher Tolkien write the Silmarillion, and I can definitely see some inspiration from that. There's definitely stuff that because I read the Silmarillion just before that, and I definitely saw some similarities, but I also saw similarities to, well, of course, if you like the Arthurian legends, he's inspired by that as well, greatly. And also like all sorts of myths from Scandinavia, Wales, places like that. I think probably the inspirations that Robert Jordan had for Wheel of Time, they kind of seem similar. Like he's talking about tapestry, he's talking about weaving and the loom, and it's kind of sounds like Robert Jordan either read this because this is older than the Wheel of Time, or they went to the same inspirations. So yeah, I absolutely love this. It's a 5-star overall. I wouldn't say it's like perfection. There's some there's like it was his debut novel, so probably had some imperfections, some faults, but I didn't care. So it was just so for me, this book. Yeah, so give it a go if you enjoy what I mentioned, and yeah. So now January TBR. January is definitely I'm gonna read Tagana, because it's part of my Guy Gavriel K project. Because when I read Fia Navarre, I'm like, I need more of this. So I'm gonna read this in January. And that's pretty much it, because I'm also currently in the middle of Martin Chuzzlewit by Charles Dickens that I started in November. And I'm also still working on Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, because I did not have time to finish it. I just the holidays, I took really a lot of time with my family. So that's it. And also there might be a book club book that I'm reading, but I'm not sure which one it is now, so I'm not going to mention any titles. So yeah, if you've read any of the books I mentioned, either that I've in my wrap up or my TBR, just let me know, and let me know if there's any books that caught your interest. So see you next time.